Coming from a tiny village in central Tibet, Bhuchung D Sonam is a renowned poet in exile. He is also a writer, translator, publisher, and a founding member of TibetWrites. His writings are published in eminent journals. Today, I am delighted to introduce you to Bhuchung D Sonam. Bhuchungla, it's so good to have you here. Welcome to our show.
Oh, thank you very much.
So, Bhuchungla, coming from an economic and journalism background, tell us what drew you to poetry?
At high school, I ended up getting really good grades in economics. I wanted to study English literature then, but because I got good grades in economics, so this scholarship committee told me if I wanted to go to college, I should study economics. So that's how I ended up studying economics for 5 years. And then, of course, later I also got a scholarship to study journalism. So that's how it happened, my formal study. But of course, throughout I've been writing. I've been writing since when I was in school. So writing kind of kept on even while I was doing my economic studies. So that's how writing kind of came over the years. But I didn't really, it wasn't really an intentional choice. I had to study economics and journalism, but then writing kind of continued. And it so happened that now I left my economic background far behind, and what I do now is translation and writing. So that's how it happened.
So you had your love for reading and writing from the very beginning itself?
Yeah, when I was in school, I used to read. I think I must have read a little more than other kids. That's how it gave me the initial inspirations, at least.
Bhuchungla, I can see a connection of your poems, such as Banishment and When Was I Born, with an individual being a refugee. Bhuchungla, tell us what inspires your poetry.
Inspiration is a very strange thing because it can come and it can go. So most of the time it so happens that inspiration is from outside, whether it's a beautiful scene or something that happens outside. But my attempt throughout my writing career has been to try to work out how you feel from inside. Because I have been through a lot. I was born in Tibet, then I was taken out when I was very young. I grew up here most of my life. So all these experiences that I've been through, and also things that I've heard from other Tibetans, and also things that I've witnessed over the last 30 years. So I think all of these combined together makes my writing. And I don't write about heavenly things, or I don't have that capacity. So I try to work based on my own experience, things that I've seen, things that I witness, and things that I hear from other people. So these are the inspirations, so to speak.
Exactly, Bhuchungla. Even I feel that most of the poets, I'm not very sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the poets, they get inspired to become a poet through their own life experiences. I've read about poets who has a very tragic life, and in their poems also, like the same is reflected. Is that true in most of the cases?
I mean, like under ideal circumstances, any artist doesn't have to suffer. But then it so happens throughout history that the more traumatic experiences that you have, it gives you greater inspiration and intensity to express what you've been through. So that has been the case with me as well. I wish I could write about happier things, but because of the circumstances that I've been through and circumstances that we as a collective Tibetan find ourselves. So I think what I write about is basically just that. Things that come to me in my life. So yeah.
What I like about poems is that poem is a very strong form in which you can express your views, and you can deliver a lot of things in just few words. And what makes it more interesting is that the readers, they can decide to make their own interpretations and to make their own conclusions out of the poem. So I want to ask a poet, what does a poem mean to you?
Oh, that's a really hard question. I don't know. I mean, like each poem means different things to me at different point of time. Things that I wrote 20 years back, if I read them now, I may have some reflection or recollection of what happened then, but it wouldn't give me the same experience that I wrote the poem at that point of time. So I can't really say a piece of poem means this to me all the time. Although the desire to express is always there. I think it's a basic human experience. It's that whether you are a writer or whether you are non-writer, there's always the need to express. You have to say what you feel inside. That's basic human experience. Yeah, so I write not because I have something special to say, but I think it has also to do with the larger Tibetan narrative. If you look at Tibetan history, from 7th century till 1959, there's so much Tibetan literature, especially Buddhist literature, were created. But then after 1959 till now, we haven't created as nearly as much as our ancestors did. So that's one part of it. And also what we have neglected over the last 60 years, I think, is a secular Tibetan literature. The experiences of ordinary people. How do you feel as a refugee at this point of time? Leaving aside all the, enlightened and aspiration and Bodhicitta and others before self. So I think this is my other reaction to what is happening now, to focus on what you feel as an ordinary Tibetan. So this, in the long run, this also might become important because history has to be based on ordinary human experience. I write because there's a larger Tibetan narrative to be taken care of.
Very true. Bhuchung, when do you think that, you have to write a poem? Like, how do you start writing a poem?
It depends upon different writers. I have a friend who takes a piece of paper and pen and sits on a table saying that, okay, I'm going to write a poem now. So she puts together words and then say, I'm going to write a poem. So that's one way of writing, which doesn't work for me that way. I write, as I said, based on my own experience. So sometimes when you are traveling, for example, something comes to you and then you either record it on your phone or write in your diary. I have my book and pen all the time. So things that you write, maybe a beautiful sentence that comes to you when you are traveling or when you are watching a film, something that comes to you. So all of these small things makes a poem. So that's how it begins.
You have a pen and a book every time with you?
All the time, yeah.
So Bhuchung, what are you currently working on?
I just finished a new book of poem. It's very different from everything that I wrote before. So
what is the title?
Songs from Dewachen.
Okay. It's about?
It's a series of poems in which the narrator is a dog.
A dog?
A dog. So dog basically narrates.
So it's from a dog's point of view?
Dog's point of view. So that's all I want to say. All right. It's very different from something that I've written, very different from everything that I've written before.
So when is it going to be published?
Very soon. It was supposed to be published by early this year, but because of this COVID-19, we had to hold it. So maybe by the end of this year, hopefully it will be out.
Bhuchung, can you share and read a stanza from your favorite poem?
Favorite, I don't know. Because see, it's, with the writing, every time that you write a poem, you think that is the best. Then something else comes up, and so that kind of disappears. So I'll just read two stanzas from this poem that I wrote about 10 years back. So it's simply called A Song. All my moments belong to you, and I'm lonely still, enveloped in the smoke of your shadow, like a dandelion under a tree. My head swells with your thoughts, and my heart is empty still, left behind by your pack of mares like a hoopless donkey. You are a spotless distant moon. I am a pebble on the shore, waiting for the next wave bathed in your light.
Thank you so much, Bhuchung. That was lovely. Bhuchung, I always wanted to ask this question to a poet, because some of the poets, they write for themselves and some they write for the readers, to inspire the readers. Who do you write for?
I write for myself, first and foremost. I think that's really important because we are all human beings. So if you write what you really feel from inside, then sometime or the other, it is bound to touch somebody else's heart. So this is how I try to approach my writing, especially poems. So I write basically for myself. Everything that I wrote is from here, and from what I hear. So basically that's extension of everything that I wrote is basically extension of myself. But of course there are others who write to inspire people, which is very, I think, that depends upon the writer, I think.
Okay. Bhuchung, you are also the founding member of TibetWrites, and TibetWrites is meant for the younger Tibetans, or any Tibetans, right, to encourage them basically, right? Can you tell us something about TibetWrites?
TibetWrites is a Tibetan writers community or writers group that we focus on Tibetan writing and also promote Tibetan literature, secular Tibetan literature, that is. Tenzin Sindu, the Tibetan writer activist, and one of our friends who has now settled in France, Tenzin Namgyal. So three of us, we started TibetWrites in 2003. Initially, we started a website so that young Tibetan writers can display their work in one forum. So when you talk about Tibetan writing, then you can say at least there's one place where at least outsiders or anybody who is interested in Tibetan writing can find writers. We also later realized that there are a lot of Tibetans writing more than what we could publish. So later we started an imprint called Black Neck Books. We have so far published, I think, 25 titles.
So you select the writings, or you just like take all the writings from the Tibetans?
We do select. Okay. I mean, we get a lot of submissions. Many are good, some are not that good. So I think based on what the quality of the writing we publish on a website. And also for Black Neck Books, which is a main publishing imprint. So for that we make sure that the quality is good, because ultimately a book is going to last for a really long time.
Okay, that's really nice. Bhuchung, I have not read all your poems, but so far my favorite was, I really enjoyed reading When Was I Born? I really loved the conversation the child and the mother had. For me, since I'm the reader, I can make my own predictions. So what I felt while reading that poem was the boy actually wanted to know his birthday, but then the mother is not able to tell the exact date, but then she tells all the unfortunate incidents that happened during those times. So she keeps answering to him in that ways, and unfortunately all the incidents are, you know, like quite unfortunate and quite sad. And what came into my mind at that time was I felt like it was about the Chinese coming and invading Tibet, and you know the Tibetans having a hard time. Is that true?
Right. I think it's a poetic device where you talk about something not in a direct way. Most of the time when we talk, we say Chinese occupied Tibet in 1959. 1.6 million Tibetans died. 6,000 monasteries destroyed. So these just become statistics, and sometimes when you repeat them over and over again, it becomes monotonous. But what we can do is, how can we use this information in a way that makes sense in an artistic way, in a creative way? So that's my idea. I didn't want to say that Chinese destroyed this monastery. I wanted a kind of poetic device where a kid who doesn't know when was he born to his mother, and mother doesn't really want to tell the kid that you were born, or maybe she doesn't know when he was born. So mother's response was telling the historical part of what happened back then when China came, and then later when the Cultural Revolution happened.
You left it for the readers to decide.
So I think that is also the more important aspect of writing, is you don't want to summarize and make things easy for the reader. You have to leave something for the reader to figure out. Maybe this was what happened, or maybe this was what happened. So that kind of a question arises, and out of that question also they may get inspired to find out something that might have happened. So that's what it is.
Thank you so much, Bhuchung. I really enjoyed the conversation today. It was really nice having you here, and I really look forward to your upcoming book.
No, thank you very
so
much.
much for being
Thank you.
here. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next episode of In Conversation with Tibet TV.